The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Going to a channel.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, where a bunch of powerful men and women get together to talk about healing, self-care, love, sex, relationships, and what it takes to be amazing on the daily. Who I am Candace Harper, lovecoach.com, and I help hardworking women and couples who have survived abuse be vibrant, alive, magnetic, and passionate while creating healthy, intimate relationships. And tonight I'm coming to you live from Teaneck, New Jersey. I see my Joe has joined. I see JD. I see Adam. We're in, like, as usual, every week. Those of you guys who tune in, you know that every week we are in the technical vortex and trying to figure it all out. So, those of you who are joining live, just know that right now I'm just trying to get my bearings. I have a guest tonight. You're not going to be able to see him, but he's coming to us all the way from Hertfordshire, England, which is amazing. Originally from London in the UK. And you guys know that right now I'm doing a theme all winter long, love and relationships from around the world. So we're going to be talking to different experts and coaches about, what their modalities are and, how people develop healthy relationships in different parts of the globe. So I'm curious to learn how people in other cultures relate with themselves and their self-care. Tonight, our special guest is a transformational relationship coach. His name is John Kenny, and I'm going to introduce him to you in a moment. But first, happy Monday, everybody. You are maybe listening on your TuneIn app to Armed Radio with your smart device, or you're listening in the garden on armedradioglobal.com. Also, if you like to download later on, you know that we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Spotify, Anchor, iTunes, Spreaker, all those great places. Or maybe you're live with me here on the Facebook, and I see people trickling in. You know what? I need to set it up so that I can interact with you guys, because I have you on my phone and you're kind of far away. I want to be able to interact with you guys and talk to you while we're talking. So let me get everything all set up. I'm supposed to do all this pre-work before we start the show. But lo and behold, here we are trying to put it together at the last minute. Anyway, yes, if you're on the Facebook, you can talk to me. Let's see. It says I'm live now. I'm going to my live feed for those of you who are out there in the listening world. And if you comment, I will be able to interact with you. Let me just turn off the sound while we're talking. So let me just wait. Can you guys hear me? You can hear me talking to myself. Anyway, I have comments all set up if you guys want to make comments while we're having our conversation and interact. Also, you guys know that if you have questions during the show and you're shy and you don't want to, identify yourself because maybe it's something private, you don't want everybody to know your personal business, you can also email me at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. And any questions that you ask, I'll talk about in a later broadcast. All right, so I think it's almost time for us to meet our guests because I'm kind of ready for us to jump into this conversation. For anybody who's just joined, I'm Candace Harper, lovecoach.com. My talent is conversation, my passion is personal growth, and my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And that is why this is a conversation. We're not here to hand down a bunch of dating or relationship rules or rights and wrongs. We're not here to shame your love situation. Our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehoods, and healthy relationships. And so tonight and every Monday night, we're going to do what it is that we do, which is have conversations that engage, educate, and or enlighten all of us in the areas of love, sex, relationships, and vibrating high. So tonight, I have my very, very special guest, John Kenny, and I want to tell you a little bit about him. Those of you who are live on the Facebook, you're not going to be able to see John tonight, but you're going to be able to hear John, and he's got a lot of really, really great nuggets and stuff that we want to talk about around relationships. But John Kenny is a transformational relationship coach. He's the founder of Interpersonal Relationship Coaching, or IRC, author of the PEOPLE program, speaker and documentary maker. He has been involved in the field of personal development for 15 years, and in that time has not only helped thousands of clients, but has also completely changed his own life, which we're going to dig into that. Hopefully John's going to be willing to share his little personal details. He spent his life full of self-doubt, carrying negative beliefs from his childhood that impacted in every area: his relationships, his career, and his time as an international athlete. It has become John's passion to help as many people as possible to live a life that they choose, rather than the one that stops them or holds them back, keeps them stuck or unfulfilled. John Kenny, welcome, welcome. I'm going to ask you to talk really, really loud because I got you on like 3 different mics. I'm trying to pick up your voice and no one can see you. Just know. Welcome, John.
Extra close to the microphone.
Right. So what do you want to say? You want to say hi to the people?
Hello. Firstly, hello, Candice. Thank you for having me on this evening.
Yes.
What should I say, in the early hours of the morning here in the UK. And hello to everybody that's listening and watching.
Oh, welcome to you. Let's see. Joe is already interacting with us. What is Joe saying? Joe says the coach is with me. Joe is our main guy at Armed Radio, and he has a show that he does with his friend, the coach, and they're hilarious. And Joe sometimes comes on and asks us questions and talks to us. Joe says, "We love you, Candice. The coach has no love life, and he is plugged up." So we're going to be helping the coach tonight, John, because Joe's sidekick, the coach, has no love life, and he's plugged up, and he's full of self-doubt. And Vanessa is saying John is too low. So that means she can't hear. She's by remote, so she can't hear you. You're going to have to use your outside voice, John. And even if you feel crazy like you're yelling, we're going to hear you perfectly. How's that?
I don't want to sound like an angry Englishman.
All right.
We'll have a good relationship, whether you like it or not.
Oh, that's perfect. But here's the thing. You're probably talking to mostly, even though it's a global podcast, you're probably talking to mostly Americans. So we're used to yelling. We won't judge you for it. We'll be happy. We'll be happy to have you do it. Hi, Rhonda, who just joined us. Hi, honey. So let's just dive in. You ready to just jump into the conversation? So first, we're going to...
Let's go.
Right? You said your tagline is that you help people to manage toxic relationships in order to overcome blocks to success. So I want to talk a little bit about, because I feel like the whole issue of toxic relationships, the reason that I do what I do is around toxic relationships and my own history with it. I feel like it's a very common thing. I feel like, people talk about relationship toxicity a lot. And almost everyone is the victim of it. Hardly anybody is the perpetrator. Right? So I feel like we should talk about toxic relationships and also talk a little bit about what you're referring to and kind of what your framework is around them.
Yeah, so just go back to your point now about being responsible. I know that I'm completely responsible for the toxic relationships I had.
Yeah.
Because I got used to toxic relationships when I was a child, and that's what I learned. So when I grew up, I then chose toxic relationships because that's all I knew.
Yeah.
So I know that the choices I was making subconsciously were leading me into toxic relationships all the time. I would say that toxic relationships are just an easy word, maybe just be unhealthy, where you can't be your authentic self. Where you feel like you are trying to be something else within that relationship, which will make that very unhealthy for you. There could be abuse, verbal, physical abuse involved, some coercion, manipulation, people trying to get you to be something that they need you to be in order to meet their own needs. Mm-hmm. So if they've got a need where they need you to be something for them, and maybe your need is to be something for them as well, it's going to lead to something that's very, very unhealthy.
Gotcha. So, what I'm hearing and what you're saying is it can be a very broad definition, because it's any kind of relationship where there's an expectation that you pretend you're something that you're not, or that you try to be something that you're not.
yeah, someone wants you to be something that fits with what they want you to be rather than who you are.
Yeah.
And they'll try and get you to be that person in order to fulfill their needs.
Yeah. I feel like that is and I agree with you, because I do feel like that is sort of the road to unhappiness, is trying to fit someone else's standard. But I also feel like it's just such a difficult thing for people to not only recognize, but because our culture is so set up for, like, setting up your life to look good, that a lot of times, even when we're on our own, we're living a life that's not necessarily true to us. So, right, it's so easy to fall into that trap of being with someone or finding someone who also fits into that thing where we're trying to pretend like, everything's perfect. So, I feel like it's almost like a little bit of an epidemic.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of expectation out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Especially with dating, especially with like internet dating. I think nowadays there's that kind of persona that you try and create because you want somebody to accept you. You want to be loved or cared about. You want to fit in. You have these needs, and you're trying to get them met. And you will try and put the best foot forward, or just a foot forward, in order to try and fit into what you think people want you to be, in order for you to be able to have that type of relationship.
Yeah. So now tell me about, like, what is because I know as we're having this conversation, what comes up for me, because I'm a big radical self-acceptance type coach. So talk about, like, what is your general framework, and, just kind of an overview of what you take people through to try to even, if I'm somebody who I don't even know why I'm having the problems that I'm having, right? But I'm in a toxic relationship because that person has high expectations on me, or I have high expectations on myself. Like, where would you even begin if someone came to you? Wait, Kenya says, hi, Kenya, and Joe, and JD, and Pam, who came in. But what would be your overall sort of framework around that?
So the way that I work is, my background's in counselling originally.
Okay.
So I was firstly trained as a counsellor, so I use those skills to help me to understand the story behind the person that's sitting in front of me, or the couple, or the group of people that might be sitting in front of me. Mm-hmm. And I try and understand their story and help them to understand their story. And then generally from their story you can gauge blockages, the ideas, the perceptions, the stuff that they might be carrying based on the story that they tell you.
Yeah.
Once we have an understanding of what that story is, there's generally quite a lot of answers in there as to why we're doing what we're doing and feeling what we're feeling. And then once we've got that idea, we can then say, okay, we can start to twist those beliefs and change the story.
Yeah.
And then we use different techniques such as neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, different other coaching techniques, in order to help people to kind of turn that story around. But I think the way that I work is it's vitally important that people understand why they're doing what they're doing first. Mm-hmm. So if I had a problem with my car, for instance, I need to get it diagnosed before I can repair it. It's not like I could just change different things on the car, just hope it starts working, because that's going to be a rare occurrence, so that's actually what you need. So to understand what the problem is, and change the life that you're living.
What would you say is a common thing, a common theme? Because I get what you're saying, because I do believe that, when we can identify and change our beliefs, we can change our actions and our results, right? Mm. But what would you say is a common theme, or something that comes up more often than not when you're dealing with someone around, being able to understand the toxicity of not being able to be yourself?
Yeah, so I would say the most common thing would be how you relate to your parents, and how your parents relate to you. And again, it's not necessary that you even had a difficult or a horrible childhood and something bad happened. It's just around your perception of the events that you lived through.
Yeah.
So you could, for instance, I had a client a few years ago, and she had very perfectly loving and caring parents. They gave her all the love in the world, but they also loved each other a lot. And every time they showed each other affection, she would feel them rejected or abandoned.
Wow.
So it was just her perception of that situation that then she thought her parents didn't love her anymore. And then she started to enter into relationships with men that she would be quite guarded to start with. Then when they started to kind of back off because she wasn't showing very much, start to feel rejected and abandoned and would start chasing them. And then she'd end up being a people pleaser, and these guys basically would run rings around her all the time and get her to do exactly what they wanted her to do, and she was quite happy to do that because she was trying to hang on to that love. And even though she'd had a very nice, loving upbringing. It's all about our perception as a child and what we see, and then what our brain puts in place when we go through those different circumstances. And then we learn that, we believe that, and then generally what happens is then we fulfill that pattern as we move forward in life. So if we get used to doing it a certain way as kids, then in adolescence, and then as adults, we experience that. Because if we've formulated a belief system, our brain is always looking for that belief to be made true. And then we start to choose what we're used to. And we can just keep going around in circles and form this really unhealthy relating pattern. That's what we've learned as a kid.
So now what would you say to people who, they're out there and they're like, because I feel like, what you're talking about, yes, it's absolutely what we learned as a kid. And a lot of times, we seek what is familiar and familial, right? Because we have learned, sometimes maybe we had a toxic parent, or maybe the whole family had a toxic energy or whatever. We've learned how to either be codependent or managing of it, or toxic ourselves. If I'm someone who's out there, let's say listening right now, and I'm feeling like, oh yeah, I do have toxic relationships. What would you say is the thing to like ask myself to look at to help me identify it, without self-diagnosing, because I feel like we do that a lot too. But how would I know that that's...
There are a lot of videos and books out there you can look at that give you an answer. But I think it's about that personal story. It's about understanding your personal story and then making sense of why you might be thinking the way that you think. Because it's about interpreting your own messages. So I might react in a certain way in a certain relationship. I might choose a certain type of person. It's about understanding why I'm doing that. And able to sort of, okay, well, I can see that that's what I grew up with, or that's my perception of what relationships are really like. I might lack in self-belief. I might have certain self-doubts, which then lead me to attract certain type of people into my life. And it's about understanding myself so that I can gain a better understanding of what's going on around me.
No, I get that. Now, when you coach, do you normally work with people? Do you work with couples? Do you work one-on-one? Like, what do you normally? What is your? And do you work more with men or women?
So I work mostly one-on-one, but I do have couples, and occasionally, if people are happy to talk about their issues in a group, I also run group coaching sessions as well. It's probably 14 women, I would say, at the moment. But actually, gradually, I think there are more men that are attracted to kind of coming and finding out how they can improve their lives as well.
Really?
I think so. I think being a man, and I've been quite open with my story, with things that I've done in the past. You mentioned the book earlier on, documentaries. I've been very open about my own story, and I think that enables to break down a few barriers for people that might be in resistance talking about themselves.
Well, I love that you brought up your own story, because I'm very curious. And I love what you said about that more and more men are interested in this growth conversation. I mean, I personally really enjoy when I meet men who are interested in this personal growth conversation, because it makes for a much more fun conversation. But also, I feel like when it comes to coaching, there is something to be said for gender differences. And I don't know if it's something that I've made up myself as a coach. I feel a lot more comfortable, or that I'll be a lot more effective if I'm coaching women. But then there are men, especially because of the podcast, who come to me and ask questions, and, I'll have sort of coaching conversations with them. But But I have a feeling, that there is some difference in the dynamic. And so I like to talk to male relationship coaches to kind of get what their experience has been and what it's like for them. And if they think, do you feel like there is a difference when it comes to coaching men or women? And let me just clarify too, gender specific, not necessarily sexual orientation specific.
No, I think that I find that most men, if anyone's going to drop out of the coaching process, it's going to be a man.
Yeah.
I find them more resistant, that their blocks for change seem to be more powerful than a lot of guys that I've coached. They get it, and then they go, but I don't want to change it. It's not always the guys that do that, but in general, I would say that if anyone's going to pull out before the work's done, it's going to be a guy.
Yeah.
There is a more of a deeper seated block, I think, for them to change.
What do you think that
they seem to be looking for someone else at fault, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That's not a sweeping statement, but I think the people that pull out, they're looking, change is too uncomfortable, and they're still looking for a different answer, and they want to blame someone.
Yeah. So what do you do when you're met with that kind of resistance with a male client? Like, how do you handle it? Coming from a space of being a man and, being able to use that experience.
Yeah, so I do bring it up.
Yeah.
More or less right at the start. But if they find there's a resistance to change, then we need to discuss it in the session. Because if they want to live a life that's free of experiences and why they're there in the first place, then that's the thing that we need to work through.
Yeah.
Some people are okay to do that. Some people you never hear from again.
Yeah. They're like, I'm just not doing it. But Joe Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, so I just said, like you said, they're just not going to do it.
Yeah. Joe on Facebook says, men believe it could be considered weakness to ask for help and then to follow a coach's advice or recommendations. That sounds valid.
They're still tarnished with. I've got a female client at the moment, and her partner doesn't want her to come in.
Okay.
And he said, "You don't need to do this. It's only weak people." But because he doesn't want her to change, he doesn't want her to feel better. He wants her to stay in the same space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's everything. Everybody has their own views of things, but I think that yes. Not so much with the coaching. Coaching is seen maybe in a slightly different light, but yeah, I think there's still quite a lot of old ideas about what it means to get help.
Yeah. And what do you say to if you're dealing with a female client and she says, or even with a male client, if their partner is resistant and doesn't want it, what do you normally lead them to?
Well, we look at what they want.
Yeah. It always goes back to that, right? Like,
yeah, because that's a question that most of my clients have never asked themselves.
Yeah.
And then, are you prepared to let that relationship go if they're not prepared to come on your new journey with you? Because your life will always be if you're not able to kind of choose the life that you want, then your story will never change.
Yeah.
So it's about talking that through. What choices do they want to make? Got to a point now where actually their health, their well-being is actually more important than after their partners. And hopefully what we then look for is put some changes into place we can see in your life are going to come with you on that journey, or whether they're going to be resistant to changes. And we need to go through that process because everybody needs to get used to change. It's not just the client that needs to get used to change, it's the people that are around you that need to get used to the change. And as we change, we need to allow those people, if we want them in our lives, we need to allow them to come to the journey with us.
Yeah.
To see what they're capable of and what they're willing to change in order for that relationship to continue.
Definitely.
And then it's up to the client to make that decision. If that person is not coming with them and they need them to come with them for them to be okay, then then that's up to them to make a decision. But then you've got relationships with your parents and siblings and people like that you change. They don't necessarily need to come with you on the journey, but you can change how you are with them.
Yeah.
And then you can change the dynamics of that relationship and how that relationship affects you. As a partner, then that's, if you're prepared to live with a partner that you don't have a relationship really with, then it can work, but it's not going to be very happy.
Yeah. What do you say to, like for your own experience and for your own journey? Because I feel like my experience has been that part of the journey, especially being in this conversation of being aware of my growth and not just kind of, obviously when I was a lot younger, I was just kind of like growing by accident and kind of going with the flow of things. But getting an awareness of it has, for me, been a journey of like relationship change and relationship changes that I was very fearful of, like whether it was a romantic relationship or how relationships would go with my family or good friends. And I'm sure you know from your own experience that there's friends that you had before you started a growth journey, and then, some of those friends didn't last or they're not still with you. And also romantic relationships often don't last through that kind of journey. And with all of that said, as human beings, one of our biggest biological and chemical fears is to be kicked off the island. None of us wants to be in isolation, but there is sort of a loneliness to changing your life, right? Mm-hmm. So when someone is in that space where they're like, that fear space of like, if I change my life right now, this relationship's going to end. Yeah. And I've been there. Like, what would be your thing? I get what you're saying. It's like, what do you want for yourself? You have to move towards what you want for yourself. But I often feel like, even that is not necessarily, that's the truth, but it's not necessarily the motivator or the thing that's gonna cause a switch. Because ultimately, right, it really is about our willingness to be on our own journey. Right? We all need to be able to do that. But and I don't know that there's any sort of magic thing, but what if someone were in that space and you really needed to cause a shift for them, like what would you say?
I think when it comes to being able to not be on your own, I think there is a transition period. Because you're putting out a different energy, you're going to attract different people. And I think it's about us getting to a different energy level and putting out different signals. So if we change in ourselves and we put out this different energy, then we're going to attract different energy towards us. Yeah. So we can let go of those old relationships that don't really serve us any positive purpose anymore. And just as we go through that transition is to look forward to what kind of relationships can I have. If I'm able to put out a different energy, a more positive energy, a more authentic energy, then the people that I'm going to attract into my life are going to be people that are going to want to be around me because of that energy that I give off. And I know if I'm being authentic and I'm being congruent, then the people that I've got in my life are actually attracted to me because of who I really am and not of the person that maybe I've tried to be for most of my life. Yeah. And hopefully that's going to be the motivation. Say, you know what, that's what I want. That's the kind of relationships I want to experience. I want to be accepted for who I am. I want to be able to be myself, and therefore I'm willing to let this go in order to get that as I move forward.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that because I feel it from myself. Like, I feel like the people that I attract now from coming from a space of just being myself, it's such a better, like, not that they're better people necessarily, everybody's on their own journey, but I like the love, the connection, the, being able to feel lit up by your relationships with people is so much more there when, you're attracting from being able to be yourself. I think that's a great motivator.
Yeah, I think that's I think it's that working on that self relationship so that you've got that self appreciation, and that self love, and then that will also help you to go. You know what, I deserve better relationships. I deserve more positive relationships. I deserve people on my wavelength. I can really connect, and that can motivate people to take that step that they need to make and change what's in their life at the moment.
Yeah, and speak up for yourself. I feel like there's Pam on the Facebook says more pure relationships. Yes, absolutely. Like just, being able to speak up for yourself in a relationship, which I think both men and women can struggle with that when they're in situationships where they can't be themselves or when they're in a toxic situation, right? It's like that alone, not that we're trying to sell it to people, but
yeah, no, it says you've got a voice, right? You need to know you've got a voice.
Absolutely.
And if you're in those types of healthy relationships, those people will let you have a voice because they'll listen to what you've got to say, whether they agree with you or not, and you can have an ad-hoc conversation about where this is. You can say, well, okay, that's, we don't agree on that, and that's fine, but I've heard you. That's what you want, and that's what you need. I'll do my best to help you with that or be that person. They might not be able to do that because of themselves.
Yeah.
They're not going to shout you down or tell you that you're wrong because you're trying to say this is what I want and this is what I need. But again, in an unhealthy relationship, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get someone who doesn't want a voice.
Or even just is, it's not always shouting, it's not always abuse. Sometimes it's just neglect, disinterest, right? When there's not that connection.
You, cold shoulder, quite, silent treatment. Passive aggressive stuff that goes on, just to make you see that actually whatever you do, whatever you say is not really going to make any difference.
Yeah. So we would say definitely the main thing to look for, because I have everybody's situation is different and the same at the same time, right? So it's really hard to put rules around it. But for those who are listening out there, the main thing is to be able to ask myself, like, am I able to be 100% myself? Like, that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. Like, if I don't want to be in a toxic relationship, I just want to be able to be me, right? Joe says...
And find out who that is.
Right? And finding out... I love that you... Yes! Like, finding out, who am I? Like, who do I want to be in the world? Who do I choose to be? And who am I? Ultimately, Joe says, letting go is the hard part, but when you do, true growth has a chance to develop you as an individual. Definitely. And Pamela says indifference. I think she's referring to what we were talking about before, when people are in a relationship that's toxic and a partner can be indifferent towards you. Yeah. But I want to reiterate what you said, John, about figuring out who you are. And in as much as, a lot of times we identify ourselves with maybe the region we come from or who our family is and all of that stuff. I mean, I'm someone who is not afraid to admit well into my 40s. And it took until my 40s to really be able to understand and stand for who I am and know what I could choose and know what was inevitable and be good with all of that. So, but that it took a willingness to even question it.
Yeah. Same. I'm well into my 40s before I actually became happy with who I was.
Yeah.
And then thought, you know what? I'm good being me.
Yeah.
And I need to go out there and just be myself.
Yeah.
Many, many years to get over the things from my past that led me to acquiesce to other people and think I needed to put on a mask and be something that everybody wanted me to be, through that fear of rejection and abandonment. Connection. And then I just thought, you know what, after doing a lot of work on myself, it was the point where I got to good at you and go out there and let people see what.
So that brings up my question earlier. I was about to ask about your own personal story. I talk a lot about my personal story for how I became a coach and how I even got into all of this conversation in the first place. So I want you to share a little bit, John, like what was your sort of relationship flora and fauna? Like, what was the thing that was the impetus for you to want to help other people with their relationships? Was there a major challenge? Go ahead.
No, I don't. I've always been in sort of a service work-wise. I even remember when I was sixth form, so I was probably about 16, 17 years of age, and I used to sit in the corner of the sixth form block with my lunch and someone sit next to me and tell me their problems and ask me for advice. So I was always someone that people would talk to. But I had a lot of issues around myself based on my own experience as a kid, where I learned to do relationships in a very unhealthy way. Then the first sort of relationships that I had when I was a teenager, where they were quite abusive as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then the first relationship I had when I left home, that was borderline narcissistic, massively insecure, and had lots and lots of problems, and I was constantly treading on eggshells and trying to keep her happy.
Yeah.
And then I just really had a succession of kind of relationships I bought into were really toxic and unhealthy,
Mm-hmm.
and the relationships that I were rejected were very nice and loving and caring.
Mm.
So I would, if anyone was treating me really nicely, I didn't know how to handle it, so they would probably say I was a bit of a narcissist at that point.
Yeah.
Or was quite a toxic person because I was doing everything I could to create distance in those relationships, and I wasn't a very nice person.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to handle nice relationships, so I turned them into something which is what I knew, which was unhealthy.
Yeah, what was familiar, right?
Yes, and I kept chasing all the ones that were no good for me. I then had counselling therapy myself. That didn't really change who I was as a person. It just helped me to understand where I came from and got a lot of baggage out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't stop me from still doing the same things over and over again. And it was only when I met a coach and she sort of said, "You're just telling yourself the same story.
Yeah.
You don't have to live this story." And I was like, "What is my life? It's my story." She said, "Yeah, but change your story."
Yeah.
And it was only then that I started the work, and that was about 7 years ago that I started the work on actually saying, okay, well, I gave myself permission to do something. And then I started working with clients in a slightly different way. Then really the last sort of 3 years or so, my personal growth has been exceptional.
Yeah.
Really delving into myself has been life-changing.
Yeah.
Knowing I could do it, I think I starting to really accept who I was, doing the exercises that I needed to do to fully accept me, and then change what I thought I wanted and what I deserved. That's been the massive change.
Yeah. I love it, and it sounds like it's an evolution, right? It's like
Constant.
right. We live in a day and age where I think people want their results like that. They want everything to shift really fast. But, when it comes to having, I think it speaks back to, when we're fearful of how our relationships will change when we start on a journey of growth, it's because we think that as soon as I start doing something, everything's going to shut down and it's all going to change. But, based on you telling your story, like, it sounds like you very much had like an evolution. And I don't know if you're like,
many, many years to put different things into place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
the neuroplasticity, the way your brain works.
Totally.
It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a minimum of 21 days, a maximum of 284 days or something like that to form a new habit.
Yeah.
So it's that consistent. You'll change your behaviour, change your thoughts of all life.
Yeah.
But it's that consistent not to be what it might bring.
Right.
But I think your brain is wired to not really like change anyway most of the time.
It's true, because I feel like, for me, I can know something for a very long time, but to actually apply it to anything, I mean, that anything that I ever have applied, it usually took a long time of knowing that I should be applying it, or I could be applying it, I should say, that I could make that choice.
Yeah. Like you said, it's about making that choice, isn't it? About saying, actually, why am I not doing that?
Right? No, it's true. Now, see,
I know it could be better, but I'm not putting it in place to see if it could.
Right? Like the brain has not stretched, the synapses are not reconnecting, and I'm not implementing. But it is possible, I think when we're patient with ourselves and, willing to do like you were talking about, to have an evolution, to have it be a slow change. If we're willing to just, pace ourselves. I often, with my clients and when I do group coaching, I always incorporate a yoga practice, no matter what level you're at, because I feel like it's such a good metaphor for how we change ourselves. It's like, it takes time to, a lot of people will say, I don't do yoga because I'm not flexible. And it's like, they're missing the point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you want to get there, so you start, you take the small steps, right?
Yeah.
In order to have that.
Around, isn't it? The reason you're not flexible is because you don't do yoga.
Exactly. Exactly. So Pam, she on Facebook, she's saying, I think it's critical to do the growth work first before entering into any kind of relationship. The comments around unconditional acceptance of who you are and understanding that you deserve a healthy, vibrant, pleasure-filled, sexy experience that adds and expands our knowledge of self really resonates with me. I agree with you on that, Pam. The one thing I would say, though, is that doing the growth work, I don't know if it's about necessarily putting it before a relationship. I feel like it's something that we don't always consider something that we should just always be doing. And when you're alone and when you're single, that's a really great time to be doing it, because you can really. Would you agree, John, that's?
Yeah, definitely. And you're not really sure how you're going to be until you actually get into the relationship.
Yes.
I would say, yeah, definitely doing the work on yourself is key.
Yeah.
But until you go into a relationship, you don't know if you've actually done the work that you need to do.
Right. And relationships are growth work.
Yourself to connect. You don't know if you're going to keep the person is, if you're going to ignore the red flags, or if you're going to keep doing what you've always done.
Yeah.
So you definitely need to find yourself and know what you want. But then if you don't take those steps into the relationship as well, you're not going to know if you're doing it in the right way for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, relationships themselves are growth work too.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
You know about yourself when you're in them.
Exactly. You won't know, like you said, you won't know till you get there.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's more to be had. And I also think too, just with a framework of expecting the growth and knowing that the challenges are going to come is part of it too. And being okay with that. Not looking for them.
Gets triggered. If when you're not going to know if you're going to get triggered until you go into a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what you do with those triggers, whether you're able to say, okay, I don't do this anymore, or whether you just go with it again. It's practice.
Yeah, it's practice. It's all practice. This whole life is practice. Joe says, application comes with self-development. Yes, Joe. I love that. Pam says, change is like riding the cyclone. Scary, thrilling, sometimes a little nauseating, but still worth the ride. Still, I choose to do it again. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But this also brings us to the other thing that I wanted to get to is your 6 tips for healthy relationships. I want us to get through. This hour goes by so fast. We're already at 45. So I want to.
These 6 tips.
Let's get through these 6 tips. I might stop you in between just to talk about a little, try to fit in a little bit of chat about them. But, go ahead and start with number 1. Let's go through them.
Okay, so prioritizing each other.
I like that one.
So when I started working with my clients, couples clients, when I was counselling, there was a lot of compromise going on. And then I realised that compromising wasn't a great situation for people to be in, because when you compromise, it's generally that you feel like you're going to be giving something up. And you don't really like to give stuff up. So when I talk about prioritising, coming from a place of love, coming from a place of letting go of your own stuff, saying, okay, this is something that makes this person happy, then I'm prepared to do that because I want them to be happy.
Yeah.
And that's going to make me happy. Therefore, I'm not compromising at all. I'm just able to say, I prioritise the fact that you're going to, and that's going to make me happy.
Yeah.
I don't mean people think that's a whole different story whatsoever. But if you're in a healthy, loving relationship and there's something that someone else wants you to do and it's going to put a smile on their face, then hopefully I can buy into that. Say, so if it's putting a smile on their face, it's going to put a smile on that.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to prioritise their needs over my own at those times because that's what I want to do.
Yeah. That language is a little sticky for me, though. And I'll tell you why. Well, I love what you said.
It comes down to differentiating between people pleasing, and a healthy relationship. If I'm just doing it because I want them to be happy, and that's a constant in the relationship, that's very unhealthy.
Yeah,
and that's signs of a toxic relationship because you're always doing what the other person wants you to do. But we're talking about being able to prioritize the needs of someone.
Yeah.
Because we all have our own needs, and we generally live our life trying to fulfill our own needs. If we can make our need a healthy need, which is, say, I'm happy that you're happy, then that's a really good thing, because it doesn't mean that we feel like we're giving something up, and then the resistance to not do that for somebody will then hopefully, and also that needs to be reciprocated.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with any of that. I think that where it gets a little bit slippery is that there is a value in selfishness. Let me explain. Right?
I haven't got a name for it.
Right? It's that filling yourself up so that you can then overflow into that person. You know, people who tune in, they know I say that all the time. But I agree with you. Like, I do think that there's nothing wrong with prioritizing a partner or your partner's health and happiness, and, you know, wanting to do things that you know will make them happy, because that's part of love and connection, right? But I think sometimes where we slip up is that we get attached to that we can make them happy. And, you know, it's a very slippery, it requires a lot of balance and an understanding that if my intention is to make you happy, I have to not be attached to successfully doing it. And I have to know that I have to make myself happy in order to be able to do it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's kind of that thing about people pleasing. I think if you're attached to making somebody else happy, you're being a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And that's fulfilling a need, an unhealthy and maladaptive need within. I completely agree that it's just there's a balance there. Maybe I need to change the order of this list to kind of make sure that you're in a healthy space first.
Right.
About being able to prioritize somebody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's not about doing it because you're just going to please them all the time.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I completely agree about the cup. I like to call this positive selfishness and negative selfishness.
Uh-huh.
So negative selfishness is basically monkeys about what you want. I'm going to do this regardless of how you feel.
Yeah.
And I don't really care. And positive selfishness is saying, you know what, I need to do this for myself. I know you might not like it.
Yeah.
But actually, if you care about me enough, you'll understand the reasons why this needs to be done.
Yeah.
And you need to do that. Like you said, you need to fill your own cup, because if there's no one around filling your cup for you, you're just going to run out.
Right.
And if you're pleasing and filling everybody else's cup, then there's nothing left for you at the end.
Right. And then there's also that when we're not willing to fill our own cup, that insistence that our partner do it, which I think is also very toxic, right? And I don't assign that to either gender, because I've known both men and women who've been in a situation where it's like their complaint was that person didn't give them what they wanted. And I feel like so many relationships break down because people are in this conversation of, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that and they didn't show up for me in that way. And you know, that's where the toxicity is, this expectation that someone, you know, can fill you up in a way that you're not filling yourself up, right? And yeah. But I get it. I like where you're coming from with saying prioritize your partner. Like I'm on board with that.
It's just a little tip when you don't want to compromise.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay, I'm going to do this because I'm happy.
Yeah.
Even though I might not really want to do it. Even though it is just for you this time,
I'm going to do it.
You're going to be happy. I'm happy to do that. But again, like you said, there needs to be a healthy balance within that, and you need to be healthy within yourself.
Yeah.
To be able to carry that out.
Absolutely. Okay, let's try to get through as many as we can. The time goes by because, John, I like to talk about everything. I don't know if you noticed that. But go ahead.
So the next one is about spending time together. So we need to connect, really.
Yeah.
So spend some quality time. Able to allow yourself to be open, sharing with somebody, and share intimate moments. Especially myself, I've carried a lot of issues around connection. I wouldn't allow myself to connect with anyone too deeply.
Yeah.
And then what happens generally when we get into relationships is that life takes over and we don't spend that quality time together. We might just have it fleetingly, or if you've got children, your priority, and therefore you don't spend enough time on each other.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important that we remember that we're in a relationship with someone. We probably spent a lot of time with one another, made each other happy and did lots of nice things or a few nice things, but spent some quality time together.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we allow ourselves to connect on that level throughout the relationship.
I like that. And I like that you said quality time. And I feel like one of the misconceptions about quality time is that it means that we're, and it can mean this, but it doesn't only mean this, that we're doing stuff that we both like. I also think quality time is time spent acknowledging each other, focusing on the good things that your partner does. A lot of times when I work with couples, the communication issue will be that they're only focusing on what doesn't work. And they're always chastising each other, for what doesn't work. And I think oftentimes people treat their partners like the way they were raised. So if they had parents who were very critical, they start parenting their partner. Right? So I think the big thing with quality time is like spend time actually acknowledging and focusing on the good things that your partner does and what's good about, like what you originally loved about them and what you love about them today and all of that stuff. Would you agree?
Yeah. And I completely agree. Yeah. There is that as time goes on, isn't there, that this isn't working for me. You don't do this, you don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do miss on something to do probably with our brain being negatively biased,
right? Looking for
those positives all the time, and then that leads to that something that's coming up in one of the other tips. It leads to that disrespect. It leads to conditioned love, and everything's based in what we can do for each other.
Yes.
Again, that again comes down to that self stuff as well. If you're not fulfilling yourself, you're going to pick on everything that the person's doing, and may trigger that inside of you as well.
Yeah. Now, I love that you said conditional love, because I've actually done whole shows around unconditional love, because I feel like it's such a trigger for a lot of people, especially people who don't believe that it's possible or have a history that dictates that, you can't have an unconditional love relationship. What do you feel about that? I've asked a couple other experts I've had, and I've gotten mixed reviews, even from someone who was like licensed clinical. They were like, unconditional love? Like, what's that? Like, it's some like...
Well, I do. When I do my workshops, I do say there is no such thing as a selfless act.
And no, say that again. No such thing as a what?
No such thing as a selfless act.
Selfless act. Got you. Yeah.
So, I would say yes. I can give you unconditional love. I don't expect anything.
Yeah.
That love. So yes, it can exist, and it does exist.
Yeah.
I'm still probably meeting a need myself by doing that.
Totally.
So there's such a thing as unconditional love. Is a condition that I'm going to feel good about myself because I'm giving you unconditional love. It's a bit of a grey area,
right?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I would suggest yes, there is something as unconditional. I'm not going to love you just because you're going to give me something in return.
Yeah.
But by loving you, I'm probably fulfilling a need within myself, which then there is a condition.
Right. That's a good point. I could buy that. Yeah. I can buy that. Yeah. I mean, and you're right, because I feel like, the condition. But with that said, if I'm not holding myself to making sure that I feel good from it, and I'm just doing it based on the good feeling, then,
Well, I would say that's unconditional.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. All right. So this is what we're going to do, John. We have, 4 more to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you do them with velocity, and then I'm going to let you tell everybody where they can find you and how to get in touch with you if they want to work with you.
Okay, so quickly, number 3 is just respect each other.
Okay.
I think we take each other for granted when we get used to being around somebody. And I think, as you mentioned earlier on, our old types of behaviours will come in as well from our learned relationships. So I think it's just being able to hold that certain amount of respect for one another and making sure that we don't take each other for granted, even though we become very familiar with each other, and make sure we hold on to that idea of respect. So that you care doesn't always come from the same space. So the kind of the 5 love languages.
Yes.
Is to learn basically how the other person feels love.
Yeah.
So if I like to say I love you a lot, but you're a cuddly person, I can say I love you and 1,000 times a day, but you won't feel it because I'm not hugging.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If you're hugging me a lot but you never say it, then I'm probably never going to figure out what the person's preferred style is. We all have a mixture generally. But actually, if I grew up learning that when people did for me, I felt cared about. Don't do anything for me, but you just give lots of cuddles, then again, I might not.
Gotcha.
So it's just learning what the other person's preferred style might be, and then trying to do a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
I think maybe, like I said, this maybe could have come further up the list, is just to be aware of your own feelings. So what's your stuff? How do you feel? Where does that come from? Has it got anything to do with a relationship? If it's got nothing to do with a relationship, it's something to be aware of and to work on that so that you don't bring that stuff into the relationship. Are you connecting for a particular reason? Do you find it hard to connect? What's your safety zone? Where do you go to kind of escape from connecting to people? How that might impact on your relationship. So it's really important to know yourself within that relationship.
Gotcha.
And lastly is love yourself.
Love yourself. I love that one. All right, we got 1 minute left with Armed Radio. We can still keep going with Facebook for a couple more minutes, but go ahead and tell the Armed Radio people where you want them to find you, the people out on audio.
Yeah, so if people want to check out the stuff that I do in a little bit more detail, then you can find me at johnkennycoaching.com.
johnkennycoaching.com.
Kenny is Kenny. And I'm available all over social media, so you can find me at John Kenny on LinkedIn, on Facebook, John Kenny Coaching, John Kenny Coaching, Instagram, John Kenny Coach. So if you want to contact me on there or just follow me on there, that'd be great to have you on board. And send me any questions, email. Just send me an email, info@johnkennycoaching.com. I'll be happy to answer anything. Also, fancy the idea of some coaching, then I do offer a consultation. So
awesome.
People can have a chat and let me know what their needs are. We'll see if we can work together to get that sorted out.
Awesome. That's for the Armed Radio people. For the people who are on Facebook and social media, we will also put John's links in the post so that you can find him as well, and his handles in the post. Armed Radio people, until next time, never forget that you're a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more and ask for candy. For the people who are still live on the Facebook, like I said, we're going to put John's links if you want to work with John, if you want to coach with John. Also, when you go to johnkenny.com, you can get a PDF of these 6 tips, right? So,
Right, yeah.
right? So if you had any trouble hearing, or if you didn't get them all, you want to make sure you got them all, and you don't want to go all the way back through the video, which I recommend going back through